This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now it's starting recording. It's a pleasure to have you here today. EMEurope and ALICE started a series of workshops, countries and regions initiatives supporting zero emission road freight and logistics. In the summer, if I'm not wrong, Fernando, you can correct me, to give all stakeholders an opportunity in countries and also between countries to connect and share experiences. It should work both ways. Public authorities are presenting strategies and all kinds of measures, initiatives to support road zero emission, freight and logistics in Europe. And the stakeholders have also the opportunity of a direct connection and to give a feedback and also to talk about their experiences. So please use these events today. Sweden will present the strategies and the projects that they are carrying out right now. Use it to exchange. It's really a space for you. And before I pass the word to Fernando, again, thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure to see so many participants, and a very big thank you to Gunnar Ohlin and the colleagues from Lindholmen Park for organizing this workshop. So the floor is yours, Fernando.
Thank you, Márcia, for the introduction of these workshops and the reasons. Actually, for us in ALICE, we are really working on this area, and particularly because road freight transport is one of the sectors more complex to decarbonize, and we aim to support this. And the reason why it's so complex is because maybe there are huge interdependency across different sectors, vehicle manufacturers, energy infrastructure, and users. We need vehicles, we need trucks, but also infrastructure and good understanding how these vehicles can be used for freight transport and logistics in an economic and viable way, and that's our huge challenges. We also see that current technology and market development is too slow to really reach the objectives, particularly 55% emissions reductions by 2030, set by Fit for 55. And then we want really to support acceleration, and we truly believe innovation and exchange and collaboration needs to, it's in the center on all this, and current innovation cycles probably are too slow, so then we need to accelerate. So then we work on these challenges, trying to network companies, research, and governments, particularly with this collaboration with EMEurope, but also European Commission, and partnerships like 2.0. Collaboration and common understanding among and across actors is really key to achieve our challenges. Through the Entrance project, we are particularly working on how first in kind of solutions can be taken by the market, and really to accelerate this emission part on creating and moving and speeding up. And I would not want to hand over without saying thank you to Lindholmen Park and all the speakers today. But now it's time to go to the content, and really eager to hear all what the speakers need to share and learn about what you and how you are doing in Sweden. That for me, it's one of the more advanced countries in this race, and particularly I think here the challenge is how we can catch up in other regions and go to speed. So then probably a lot of learnings ahead. So now I would like to hand over to Gunnar Ohlin, and that will conduct the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Márcia and Fernando, and thank you to all participants attending this workshop. I will start right away with sharing my screen, and then we'll take it from there. Let's see here. Okay. It works fine. Now I can see that. Very good. My name is Gunnar Ohlin then, and I work at Lindholmen Science Park. We are a non-profit organization in Sweden, working as a neutral part between the industry, the academia, and the society. And we are here to tell you a little bit about the Swedish initiative supporting zero-emission road freight and logistics that we are currently running in Sweden. So we have an agenda for today, and that is this simple one. The first, we will start briefly with the role of Swedish authorities, and that's where the Swedish Energy Agency will come in, and also Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency, and with a specific focus on FFE, more to that later. There will be a question and answer session after that first part. Then we will have a short update on electric road system status in Sweden by the Swedish Transport Administration, Thomas Asp. And then after that, we will look into the two Lighthouse projects, Wheel and E-Charge, that is both concerning electrification of heavy-duty trucks with stationary charging. After that, we will have a panel discussion on barriers to scaling up. And we have a number of participants here today from the above-mentioned organizations, but also we have participants from Volvo and Scania, the two Swedish OEMs. So with that, we would like to start with the first section, and that is the role of the Swedish authorities and the Swedish Energy Agency. And I would like Anders Lewald to present. So welcome, Anders. Good to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You can change slide, I think. My name is Anders Lewald, and I work as a senior advisor at the Swedish Energy Agency. I worked there for many years. The Energy Agency is a national authority for energy policy issues, and resorts now under the Ministry of Infrastructure and has a general director appointed by the government. So we are government funded, and we have around 450 employees, and we're situated in Eskilstuna in the middle of Sweden. Our vision is affordable and clean energy, and our mission is we're leading the society's transition to a sustainable energy system. You can change slide, thank you. These are some examples on what we're doing in the transport area. At first, up in the right corner, we have a Swedish goal of reducing CO2 emission with 70% until 2030 compared to 2010, and that's the most important goal in this section, the transport section. What we're doing at the agency is, for instance, we're funding a lot of research and innovation, as well as, and often together with Vinnova, as we will hear later on. We also coordinate recharging infrastructure or support to recharging infrastructure in Sweden, which is kind of the subject here today. Do you hear me? Yeah. We also run a program on.
There is someone that can mute their microphone. Thank you.
Now we don't hear Anders. No.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. I'm sorry. For how many minutes, for how long time have I been gone?
Not long at all.
All the time.
Okay.
Only when you asked if we could hear, and we could still hear you. Okay.
Yeah, fine. So we are coordinating research infrastructure in Sweden, or support to recharging infrastructure. We also run a program on climate premium for heavy vehicles, which is a support scheme for investment support. We run fuel obligations. That means integration of renewable energy into petrol and diesel obligations on that. We work with local and regional capacity development, that is regional knowledge and local knowledge on a sustainable path in this area. And last but not least, this pilot project about electrification on heavy road transport. You can change slide, Gunnar. This is a funding or a mission we got from the government about 2 years ago, and it's all about financing electric charging infrastructure and hydrogen refueling infrastructure for heavy vehicles in order to accelerate the use of them, of course. And we got 1,500 million Swedish crowns for this. And we had a call this spring, and we got a very interesting result. We got so many interested in this, so they were asking for almost 5,000 million SEK all in all. But you can change slide now, Gunnar. At the end, during the summer or late summer, finally we have financed roughly 140 electric charging stations for heavy vehicles, and you can see in blue dots all the electric charging stations that are financed here through this scheme. On the right picture, you can see the slide. You can see also hydrogen station financed, and one in nearby Uppsala in the middle of Sweden, which are combined. It's both electric charging infrastructure and hydrogen infrastructure. And the interesting part, this is a lot of recharging infrastructure and quite a lot of hydrogen also compared to the situation today. Basically, we have none for heavy vehicles at all in Sweden. All of these has to be erected and in use roughly 1 year from now. So hopefully this will go very fast. You can change slide now, Gunnar. But I will also add that this is not the only public recharging infrastructure program we have. We also have programs for non-public recharging, and we have a general program for recharging infrastructure in Sweden, which is called Klimatklivet, or the Climate Step. They also have calls for recharging infrastructure and also for heavy vehicles. So this picture, you can't see it very well, but there are even more dots in this. So we hopefully have quite a lot of recharging infrastructure for heavy vehicles a year from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anders. And we will be able to take questions after the next presenter, which is then Frida Bjerke from FFI Vinnova. So please, Frida, now it's your turn.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Frida Bjerke. I work at Vinnova. I am program manager for one of the programs within FFI, and I'm here to tell you about FFI, the Strategic Vehicle Research and Innovation Program. You can change the slide. So FFI is a funding program focusing on road safety, energy and environment, and also competitiveness. It's an agreement between the automotive industry and the Swedish state, and it includes the partners that you can see on the right. Several agencies like Vinnova, Swedish Energy Agency, and Swedish Traffic Administration are working together in collaboration with the industry in this program. And what we want to achieve is to empower innovation for road transport for a more sustainable society. You can change the slide. So the program is focusing on addressing societal challenges, and recently FFI has been updated and changed with new thematic programs and a fifth program called Accelerate. And since this change, we're working more clearly with goal management and portfolio and gap analysis to try to address the challenges in a more structured and data-driven way. And you can change the slide. So the vision for the FFI program is for Sweden to lead the global transition to sustainable road transport, and the mission is to empower innovation for road transport, aiming for a sustainable society. And we also have 3 impact goals that all these thematic programs are working towards. If you want to read them in detail, you can find them on the website. I'm not going to read them now, so you can change the slide. So these are the programs within FFI: circularity, zero emission, safe automated driving, transport and mobility services, and accelerate. You can change the slide again. So the circularity program is focused on the life cycle perspective and includes both development, production, and decommissioning of vehicles. Zero emission focuses on development and integration of zero emission vehicles, including charging and refueling infrastructure and the users. Safe automated driving is focusing on improving road safety and making transport more sustainable through safe, connected, automated vehicles. And the last program, Transport and Mobility Services, is focused on more efficient use of vehicles and transport systems by developing and testing new innovative services and transport solutions. And then we have the fifth program, and then you can change the slide. Accelerate. And this program has an implementation and ecosystem perspective with the aim to accelerate the pace of energy transition through strong and broad collaboration between relevant actors. This program will address several system perspectives: technology, products and processes, business models and procurement, policy and regulation, behavior, culture and values, and infrastructure. And the characteristics of the projects within this program are that they should be more extensive and complex demonstration projects, and you will see examples of these kinds of projects later today. They should have the potential to reach implementation within a few years. They also need to have relevant results that can be scaled up. It could also be projects within new innovative areas that are not covered naturally by the other thematic programs within FFI. Yes. You can change the slide again. Yeah, that was in short FFI. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me after this or any of the other people, of course, working within FFI, the FFI program. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much, Frida. And now it's time for any questions to Anders or Frida regarding the Swedish Energy Agency or FFI Vinnova. So do we have any questions in the chat? There's one. Yeah, that is already taken care of, the Euro question. So do we have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I may. Yeah. The question is for Anders. You're talking about this recharge infrastructure, the program. Is it technology free or?
What do you mean by technology free?
It's zero emission, so it's all sorts of it's battery, it's hydrogen, it's
technology neutral, maybe.
Yes, not free. Sorry, technology neutral.
That's a support scheme I was mainly presenting. That was aiming at recharging infrastructure and hydrogen only.
Only hydrogen. Okay, sorry, I didn't get it.
The climate step is a very general program, so it's for reducing CO2 emissions in society in general. So you can do almost anything. So it can support different types of fuels, both production and usage. So Sweden is most likely also very famous for biogas. So we have a lot of biogas development or financing through the climate step also.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we can also mention, Anders, that there were some technical specifications on those programs that you needed to have 350 kilowatt availability at the chargers, for example, and that you needed to have in balance 175 kilowatt.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, that's right. We had all sorts of requirements to pass this. I didn't go into these details, but you had to have 350 kilowatt charging points here, and you could load balance such that you had 175 kilowatts in pairs by two. And most of these recharging points are more than two or more than four recharging points at the same station. I don't have the exact numbers here now, but most of them are several recharging points at each station. Also, and all sorts of other type of requirements for maintenance, for 5 years usage, for connections to infotainment systems, etc. Also.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question that was in the chat and that was also solved in the chat was how much is 1,400 million SEK, and that is, if you divide it by 10, you get the amount in euros, more or less. So it's a pretty big incentive scheme.
And 140 stations are quite a lot too.
Yeah. All right. So any more questions in the chat?
Anders, may I, Anders Berg from Volvo, may I just add as a background to FFI that it was initiated back in 2008 as response to the financial crisis back then to help the competitiveness of Swedish automotive industry. And the funding is set up like a 50-50% funding where the public funding is from taxpayers are 50% and is expected to be met by at least, and it's more than 50% of in-kind from the industry. So that's, I think, good to understand that it's in practical terms. I think it's more than 50. It's 60-40 or something like that. Perhaps you have the figures, Frida.
I don't have the exact figures, but there's somewhere around there, yes.
Yeah, 60% industry funding and 40% state funding in this program. Been running since 2008. And the backbone of Swedish research and innovation in the automotive sector.
Okay, so I think we need to move on, and there may be also time for questions at the end of the workshop. We will also provide you with contact details. You will get the presentation and so on. So there will be all possibilities to get back to and clarify things. Next part in the agenda is an update for the electric road system status in Sweden. That was requested by Márcia and Fernando, I think. So even though we have a focus here on battery electrification vehicles with stationary charging, so I would like to welcome Thomas Asp from the Swedish Transport Administration. Welcome, Thomas. You have a brief presentation here on the status.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes. Good. Yes, my name is Thomas Asp and I work as a senior specialist, as Gunnar said, at Swedish Transport Administration, but also part-time as a project leader at Lindholmen Science Park and closer but that is not in this area. You can change slide. First time background and also describing of demonstration of test roads. The work with electric road system started in 2009 in Sweden when the Swedish Energy Agency funded research and development project for ERS, and one reason was to see if we could reduce the dependency on batteries in light-duty vehicles. The Swedish Transport Administration was involved 2013 in ERS, and the goal for us was to enable zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles, as the other alternatives was considered unrealistic during that time. We launched a pre-commercial procurement that rewarded 2 projects: the electric road in Sandviken, based on the Siemens overhead catenary technology, and the electric road at Arlanda, based on conductive rail from EVIAS. And it's the 2 tests above in this slide. The electric road in Sandviken was inaugurated in 2016 and decommissioned 2020. And this was the world's first electric road system for heavy-duty vehicles on a public road. The ERS in Arlanda was in use 2017 to 2021. As different ERS technologies were under development, the second pre-commercial procurement was launched a few years later, and this resulted in the electric road in Lund, based on the conductive rail from Evolution Road, and the electric road in Visby, based on an inductive or wireless system from Electrion. And it's good that you are pointing also on the slide. The aim of this was to gain knowledge about ERS. For example, can we build and operate an electric road for heavy-duty vehicles on a public road? But as this was done as a pre-commercial procurement, the electric road demonstration facilities needs to be decommissioned at the end of the project. So also these 2 last projects, which started 2020, we need to end 2024. You can change slide. And the government are also tasked the Swedish Transport Administration to construct an electric road pilot as the first permanent electric road in Sweden. And the pilot will be at the 21-kilometer long section on the E20 south of Örbo, and maybe not in the middle of Sweden, but on the middle of this map. And the procurement are planned to start during the second half of 2022 and include the selection of ERS technology for this pilot. And this electric road is anticipated to open for traffic late 2025, but of course there is a lot of uncertainties about this, but our aim is still to have it open in 4 years, or in 3 years. In parallel with the assignment to construct the ERS pilot, the government have also tasked us to develop a plan for possible rollout of an ERS network based on what we have shown in previous plans, and that is shown on the map. And on this network, we should identify suitable sections, and these sections should be presented to the government in December 24 at the latest. So that is still a year, almost 2 years, probably. And beside these national ERS activities, Sweden also have cooperation, especially with Germany, but also with France on ERS. So there's quite a lot of our common research projects which we have done, and we also have results from. I think that was everything, so thanks for me. And I hope it was understandable.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you very much, Thomas. It will be interesting to follow this and see what happens, especially since they haven't chosen the technology yet for the section that will be built till 2025. Let's move on to the next step then, and if we find time at the end, we can get back with questions to you, Thomas. Thank you. So next step in the agenda is to have a presentation from these two Lighthouse projects. And the first one of these is the REAL project. And I have my colleague here, Andreas Josefsson, on the other side of the table. He will present REAL.
Yes.
There you are, Andreas, sorry.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this session and letting me share what we at Lindholmen Science Park and also Close are working on when it comes to electrification of road logistics together with our partners here in Sweden. As Gunnar said, my name is Andreas, and in this presentation I will put focus on the project REAL, which stands for Regional Electrified Logistics. And this is a system demonstrator where we both develop, demonstrate and analyze systems for electric trucks and stationary charging in different regional logistics applications together with 45 organizations all around Sweden. And the project kicked off in the first phase in the beginning of 2021, and it will continue until the end of 2024. And the total budget for these two phases adds up to approximately 250 million SEK. That is approximately 25 million euros. And the project is funded by FFE Accelerate that Frida was talking about, together with the industry actors. Can change slide, Gunnar. And the goal with REAL is really to pave the way for a large-scale electrification of regional logistics systems by demonstrating how the solutions really work, and simultaneously get data from the demonstrations that we develop and operate. And in parallel with the logistic operations that they run, we also have a focus on more horizontal questions that affect the transformation to electrified logistics. And as said, it is approximately 45 organizations that together drives the project, and it's a mix from both transport buyers, hauliers, OEMs, grid network and energy companies, as well as regions and universities. And when we started up the project, we had the aim to demonstrate various kinds of transports to understand how various flows are affected. For example, we showcase chemical transports, transport of iron ore, timber, recycled materials, pallets and parcels, textiles, containers, excavated material, and also grocery transports. Can change slide, Gunnar. And in total, we operate 63 electric trucks in the project, whereof 18 of those are so-called prototype vehicles from Volvo and Scania. And the trucks operated varies in size. The smallest one with a total weight of 16 and the largest one with a total weight of up to 74 tons. And in the map here, you can see approximately where the flows are situated in Sweden. As you see, the majority of the flows are driven in the southern parts of Sweden, from Stockholm or southern of Stockholm and below Gothenburg and Malmö and so on. But we also have a few flows around the northern coast area of Sweden. And I will just show you some of the demonstrations that we run. As I said, we have 63 tracks, and now I will showcase 4 of the tracks that we have put in operation. Can you just take the next picture, Gunnar? And this was the first track that we put in operation, and this was in March 2021, so it has been operating now for 1.5 years approximately, and this was done together with the DHL Freight and Volvo. And this is a 64-ton truck that operates in DHL's line haul between 2 of their bigger terminals here in Sweden. And every night the truck runs between Göteborg and Jönköping, which is approximately 170 kilometers one way. And before it leaves from Jönköping around 3:30 in the morning, the truck has been charged in parallel with the loading process. And when arriving to Gothenburg, the truck is unloaded and charged before it starts running distribution within the region of Göteborg. And when finalized, it will return back to logistic terminal and load up and charge between the shifts, and then it will return back to the Jönköping terminal again. And with this setup, they gain approximately 450 to 500 kilometers of driving within a single day with this truck. Another one that I can jump onto is this demonstration that was established in February this year, and this is done in collaboration between the chemical supplier Vibax and Scania. And this ADR approved 64-ton trucks transport bio-oils and sulfuric acid, etc. And this track also operates in 2 shifts with a daily mileage around 350 kilometers approximately. And the VBAC's operation fits very well to an electric setup because they have loading and unloading processes of approximately 45 to 60 minutes of their chemicals. And therefore they have also installed a charger near their terminal gate. So simultaneously as they charge chemical or as they load chemicals onto the trailer, they can also charge the truck. The next one, I will not go into details of this, but this is another truck that we will put in operation next month actually. This will be operating for ICA in the southern part of Sweden, delivering refrigerated goods to supermarkets around the Skåne area. And the last one that I will just showcase a little bit is this one from Jula Logistics, which is connected to a multimodal solution from an inland port. So Jula, they operate a train from Gothenburg port to an inland port in Falköping. And here they run the on-road logistics with an electric truck right now. And as you see, they transport 2 40-feet containers with a total length of over 30 meters, which they have previously been approved by the Swedish authorities to do so. And now it's being, you can say it because I lost the word, but it's getting out there for everyone to being able to do this.
And if you want to know more about high capacity transport, I think you can make contact with Thomas Asp.
Yeah, exactly. And simultaneously, we can skip to the next slide, Gunnar, or jump to the next slide.
Even after this one?
No, this one we can, I didn't skip. And simultaneously, as we operate all those 63 trucks, we also run those horizontal work streams in the project. And then we focus on both the system architecture and interoperability between the different subsystems in the total system for electric trucks. Also have a focus area on policy and regulation, third one on business and financing models, and the fourth on work and culture and knowledge gaps. And here we have a lot of ongoing activities. I will not go into details to all of them, but if you would like to find out more, you can always log into our website afterwards or take contact with me or any one of my colleagues. But the idea is actually that we then extract findings from the demonstrators to identify obstacles that we can work on together to overcome. And some of the issues that we have an extra focus on right now is, for example, to design an index that can be used in transport contracts so that the risk of volatile energy prices can be shared between the transport buyer and haulers. This exists today for diesel, but it is lacking for electricity. So we see that this is an obstacle to really being able to scale up the system. And this is something that has been highlighted by the logistic actors that we have in the project. Another part that we are looking on is the need for data exchange between the different systems. That has also been highlighted by the logistic actors. Being able to extract the data from the vehicle or the FMS systems and also the CMS, the charging infrastructure management system, and to obtain this data into the transport management system to being able to perform the planning in a good way when you are scaling up the fleets and you have more vehicles. Because right now, most of the actors only have one up to 5 vehicles. So this has not been a big problem so far because they have been handled in a good way in the system. But when we are going to have big fleets of electric trucks, then this needs to be put in place here. I can just show you one more example, a little bit more in detail. You can just skip to the next slide where we have the economic example. Yeah. Here is one example of what we are doing in the business and financing models part, doing those economic analysis based on data from the logistic actors, doing comparison studies between the electric systems and the diesel systems. So here you see real figures from one of our operators that operates 2 electric trucks, 27-ton trucks that run approximately 350 days a year, 2 shifts, they reach approximately 7,500 kilometers per truck per year. And here you can see that they have installed a high power charger, being able to charge the truck during the reloading and unloading processes at the terminal. They also have low power chargers installed at the terminals that are used during the night when the vehicles are not in operation. For this case, they use a 6-year depreciation time because they have a 6-year contract with the customers, so it's a quite long contract period, which is also an enabler for putting those trucks in operation, because as you can see, there are quite a big price difference between the electric truck and the diesel truck. But thanks to those longer contracts with the transport buyers, it makes it really possible for them to put those trucks in operation. What can also mention here is in Sweden we have those incentive schemes that Anders was talking about. For the trucks, it's 20% of the total cost of the truck that has been co-funded. And for the charging infrastructure, the non-public charging infrastructure that they have installed, it's 40% of the total cost. That is the maximum for this kind of or this kind of party to get hold of. And as you can see, with all the costs included, as we have in this table here, they are quite equal compared to the diesel case. Of course, this is much dependent on the current prices for diesel and electricity, which varies a lot. Also, in different regions of Sweden, we have quite high price difference between the cost for electricity in northern part of Sweden compared to southern part of Sweden. So this is also affecting the business case for the actors. But it must be noted that this is only possible due to the long contract periods and also thanks to the public co-funding that can be obtained. Otherwise, of course, the electric trucks would not have been as compatible as they are in this comparison. What can also be mentioned is that we have not included in this graph the extra time that the operator needs to put down in before the operation starts, because there are a lot of planning time that adds up in the operation that we have not included. It has been seen to be approximately 250 to 300 hours to put the first vehicle and charging infrastructure in place. So it's an effort for the logistic operators. And we have neither not included the maintenance cost as well as the interest costs. And the maintenance cost has not been included because we have seen in the cases so far that has been quite similar. So we would like to get more data on that before we put that in the calculations. But we have more of those simulations. You can jump to the next slide, Gunnar. In a report that we will soon release from the project. Sorry. It's good. So this report will soon be released. We will publish it on our website and also through our LinkedIn channel, where we will present some more of those business case figures as well as more details on the different demonstrators that we operate. So I will gladly share this with you, Fernando. Maybe you can share it in the ALICE network afterwards as well. But it will take some weeks before it is finally published. And next slide, please, Gunnar. You can see here you can find out more information about the project, and also I'd advise you to both log into our website and also to follow us on LinkedIn to get more information about the project, because we will continue this project for another 2.5 years. So a lot is more to come. Thank you, Gunnar.
Thank you, Andreas, and we will not have time for questions right now, so we move on, and I will give you a little bit of insight into the other Lighthouse project that we call eCharge, which is about system demonstration of electrified long-haul transports. And this project is similarly with REEL. It's co-financed by FFI by the Swedish Energy Agency, Trafikverket, and Vinnova. So, and it's all about actually how we can run this kind of operation, where you can go run an battery electric truck for 4.5 hours on the highway, then stop for 45 minutes while the driver takes his or her statutory break and charge with megawatt chargers, and then go for another 4.5 hours. That's the target with this project. But it's also, as Andreas mentioned, many other aspects that we would like to cover with the project. So if we can manage to run vehicles like this, we can operate a vehicle one day in Sweden, the next day in Germany, and the third day maybe down in Italy. So that's something that is very common on the TEN-T network. The project is like in real. We have competitors working in the same project. We have both Scania and Volvo developing these long-haul battery electric trucks. And we have ABB. They are developing the megawatt charger systems that will be used in the projects. We have two different, what we call them, petrol energy supply companies along the highway, Circle K and OKQ8, and they will operate these MCS chargers. So they are also competitors working in the same project. And then we have three different logistic operators, DB Schenker, ICA, and Tommy Norberg. DB Schenker, they will move styckegods, what is, I don't find that word in English, but could you help me?
Pallets and parcels, you can say.
Pallet and parcels, thank you very much. ICA, they will move refrigerated goods, food, and Tommy Norberg also food and stuff like that. We have the Swedish electromobility conducting research in the project, academic research, and from 4 different universities in Sweden. And last we have also Vattenfall, Swedish energy company. They are both grid owners in some parts and selling energy, so they are part of the project. And we will make these in the project, these vehicles that will be developed and these chargers that will be used and these flows that will be operated, they will be operated in the southern part of Sweden, between the big cities, more or less, along the big highways. When it comes to the research areas, we will look at several different areas from the vehicle and modeling how the vehicle energy consumption is depending on the road, on the weather, on the speed, wind, and so on. On the cargo, we will look at the logistics system and how that will be affected by this new technology. We will look at the charging system in a simulation model that could handle thousands of objects. And there we will look at the number and location of chargers. Input of reliable data is very crucial for that part, of course. We will look into the system cost efficiency. We will look into the grid and effects on the grid, both in terms of capacity, but also in terms of quality when it comes to these high power chargers. How will they affect the quality of the power grid? And last but not least, we'll look into policy and regulation. So we have many questions, many research areas here are connected to what our colleagues are doing in the real project. And here you can see the different universities in Sweden involved in this particular project. The project is divided we have 4 horizontal work packages where we work together, all the parties, with the initial system demonstration, with the multidisciplinary modeling and analysis of the system. And the third one is to prepare a master plan for charging infrastructure. And so we do this together in an iterative way. And parallel to this, of course, the different competitors are working in more or less vertical work packages. We could call them silos. first part of the project in order to prepare for the initial system demonstration, developing the vehicles and so on. In the latter part of the project, also preparing for a large-scale demonstration. The next step in this project is well, I just want to say one more thing regarding we do not display yet what kind of flows or where these flows will go in Sweden, but they will be operated during a 12-month period, and the project will end. The planned end of the project is 2024 in December. So we will run these flows for 12 months to get as much data and experience as possible from all kinds of weather conditions. One important step is, of course, like we're not just there to run these first 2 to 4 vehicles in the project. We will also prepare for what should we do in the next step. How should the necessary charging infrastructure look like if we would run a lot of battery electric vehicles like this in Sweden? So that's a big part of the project. In order to understand this, how should we scale up the system? And that is also the topic of the panel discussion, not just scaling up the long haul transport, but what are the barriers for scaling up? So if we are looking at again a roadmap of the project that we are working in now, we are working in this initial system demo eCharge, and Andreas and his colleagues are running the real project here. But what is the next step? How do we do this? How do we scale up the system, both for the kind of vehicles that we will test in eCharge and the vehicles that are tested in real? And as you can see, and maybe you heard from Frida, that when it comes to the FFI, they want to see these big system demonstration projects where you take care of all these different aspects like policies and regulations, business models, norms, attitudes, habits and behavior, and also the infrastructure that is needed, the digital infrastructure as well as the electric and road infrastructure. Some of these topics we will address in the project, some of them are addressed in real, and during this time when we work with real and eCharge in parallel, the market will evolve. So what will the scale up look like in the next step? That is really the last slide I had before this, and this, of course, you can see, you can read some, not much, of the project eCharge here at Lindholmen. We will probably in the future also present more on LinkedIn from the project itself. And if you have any specific questions, you're welcome to email me. But with that, I would like to continue in the program, having given you a glimpse of the eCharge project, and go on with the panel discussion now on barriers to scaling up. And let's see what time it is. We are pretty much in time for that, so then I will quit the slide screen. Now let's slip like this. So hello everyone. Now I can see you. That's great. And actually I had one last slide. What you don't have in your hand, and that is of course to present the panel. So in the panel we have today Anna Pernestål from Scania. Hello, Anna. We have Anders Berger from Volvo. And then we have Anders, whom you've already heard and met, and Frida and Thomas as well, and Andreas and Gunnar. But we are playing a minor part, Andreas and I. and we are looking forward to hearing from Anna, Anders, Frida, and Thomas. So the theme for the panel discussion is on the barriers to scaling up. And let's see here. And then I stop sharing again. So Anna, if we may start with you. You were working with Scania.
Yes, that's correct.
And you have been there for a while now, and you were a researcher before that, I think. If you would like to, what would you see as the biggest barriers for scaling up this technology, or the transition to zero road emission?
Yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, maybe, or there are several barriers. Of course, we need to mention energy production, expansion of energy production, and the expansion of the grid, so that we can get access to the energy, and the whole planning of the energy system and the energy production system as such. But that is one part. But we also, I would also like to stress there are a lot of smaller barriers that kind of builds up to a big barrier with the new business models, with the new operation that is needed. With electrified vehicles, for some types of operation, we can shift like one vehicle, one diesel or ICE vehicle with one BEV vehicle. But in many cases, that will not be the case, and that will require new operation schemes, which I think we address in the Swedish context. We address those barriers very nicely with the real and the e-charge projects, where we also look at the operation of the vehicles. And this goes hand in hand with the energy production, because we need to understand the operation of the vehicles and the business models, etc., in order to build out the energy system in a good way, and vice versa. So maybe the big barrier is that there need to be changes in so many ways at the same time. And I think collaboration is a key to overcome those barriers.
So if I understand you right, you see there are barriers, but there are also an evolution, sort of as a stepwise process. So we will. Are you totally optimistic? Or is there anything you are pessimistic about?
I'm optimistic as a person, so yes, I'm optimistic. But I know that we can overcome the barriers, but it will be a struggle, and it will not happen by itself. So I think the combination here that we see with the subsidies, the regional electrification pilots that Anders mentioned in the beginning of this session, that's really one good step. The real and the e-charge projects are good steps also in the right direction. We need to do more. We need to maybe work even more to understand we are marrying the transport system with the energy or electricity system. That's actually what happens now, and those two systems will affect each other, and we need to be aware of that marriage, and maybe invite new stakeholders into the transport system dialogues. But in order for me to be positive, I would like to stress that there are a lot of actors that need to act at the same time, from the government, from the authorities, to put in subsidies and to support the development of the energy system and the charging points, together with the OEMs. We, as well as Scania, we are pushing really hard research and development in order to release new truck models with longer range, with bigger batteries every year. We need to push with the transport buyers and the logistics sector, so they are also prepared, and we need to do this at many fronts at the same time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Anna. Let's see what Anders Berger at Volvo, if you share Anna's view on this. Please, Anders, what do you see as the biggest barriers for scaling this?
I think you could summarize the barrier with the phrase total cost of ownership parity. Andreas alluded to that in one of his slides, actually, and that's what we all are working for jointly now together, all the actors in this new ecosystem of transport and energy, to, as fast as possible, to reach TCO parity with the fossil alternatives. And for that, we need a number of levers to help us, as we've been touching up on today. Purchase incentives for the trucks, since there is and will be a cost premium for electric truck versus diesel trucks. And equally important is the planned and coordinated rollout of charging infrastructure in this case, and a little later this century also hydrogen infrastructure. The project presented by Anders Lewald, the Regional Electrification pilots, are a very good example of how we can kickstart that rollout of charging infrastructure. At least when it comes to geographical coverage. So 140 different sites is quite massive for a small country like Sweden. However, it's far from adequate in terms of the capacity needed, in terms of power needed in these stations as the fleet grows. And I mean, we in Sweden, Volvo and Scania together, has jointly stated that we believe that we can sell 50% of our trucks in Europe, or globally even, could be electrified by 2030. Taking Sweden as an example, that will result in about 20% of the rolling fleet being electric in 2030. And to supply energy to that fleet, we need to continue this planned rollout of infrastructure. We need long-term policies and incentive schemes so that we can help the operators, the hauliers, to plan ahead, because I think planning is equally important. So knowing how this map of charging infrastructure will develop over the years will help us immensely in doing this transition. And as we have ALICE also, and transport buyer community online, hopefully, I think that the main contribution from you guys will be to provide longer contracts, because we see that as absolutely decisive in the TCO case for electric trucks. To move up to these 6 years, 4, 5, 6 years of contracts will make a large difference for the hauliers to dare to take their part of this risk and step over to electric trucks. And then the list can be made long here. We have driving and resting times that we need to look on. We have the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation coming on, helping us with the charging infrastructure in Europe. We have the state aid rules that are really important, that are also being revised now. We have carbon pricing, which could help this TCO case dramatically, and to use the Eurovignette, for instance, or the European trading scheme for transport. So we have a number of instruments, but they need to be coordinated. They need to be quite simple and understandable for the market to be able to move quicker. So, I mean, this is not a question if it's going to happen or not. It will happen. The question we face now is how fast do we want it to happen? And the incentives and policies and the joint efforts from all the ecosystem can easily bring this time down to quite rapid transformation. Because as soon as we reach TCO parity in each and every segment, not everywhere in the market, but in each and every segment of the market, the switch to electric will go immediately, because no haulier wants to drive diesel if there's an electric alternative that works. Thanks.
Thank you, Anders. And and that last thing that you say is very interesting. So if this TCO parity goes, even so, it becomes even more, if it becomes advantageous to drive with cheaper to drive with an electric vehicle. What kind of barriers do you see then? Because if everyone wants to do it suddenly in the segment, do you see any risks with that? Any barriers what will happen?
Delivery times and of course, and component shortages. I mean, there are numbers of barriers if that happens, but I tend not to worry about the barriers of excess demand. I think that is a barrier we can live with on the truck side anyway, and I think Anna agrees with me and the other OEMs as well. However, I mean, there could be, of course, grid capacity problems here that requires longer lead times. So what we are now trying is a direct dialogue with the grid companies in Sweden and on European level to sort of model and simulate the forthcoming needs, both geographically and in terms of because we know where trucks stop, and we know how much they want to charge based from their movements today. So we can anticipate the requirements on the grid and put that as part of the forecast for the needed grid expansion. It will be required for many other reasons, for the many other sectors that want to go from fossil to electricity. But I mean, our part here is to provide the energy system, the power grid with the forecast of needed capacity approximately in a time-phased model as well. That would alleviate some of the lead times problem of reinforcing the grid and providing the green power that we need.
Well, thank you, Anders. Anna Pernestål, any comments on Anders' input here?
No, I think we are really speaking the same language.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's hear what you raised your hand, Andreas. Is there?
I can just mention that many of the actors that we have involved in the projects that we have been presented, they are currently looking into and also already establishing local energy production at their terminals and their depots, together with the energy storage, to be able to charge their vehicles with the right power at the right time that they want to. So those installments are already being done, and I think the first big installment with the big charging park will also be in operation next week already. So it's happening at those local sites already.
Should we go, Anders Lewald? You are still with us, I hope.
I am. I'm here.
What do you and the Swedish Energy Agency, what do you see as the biggest barriers for scaling this up?
I would first like to say that I share the views of Anna and Anders from Scania and Volvo very much. So I'd like to add the importance of the building sector. It's often the building sectors, like the terminals in this case, but also the places where you park the vehicles during the night, which is not necessarily only at the terminals. That has to supply most likely a big share of the electricity. So we have been working very much with involving the building sector in the transition to electric vehicles, starting with private cars, of course, but later on for trucks and all sorts of other vehicles we can find. So I'd like to add the importance of the building sector to prepare for this. I could also comment that the agencies involved in the electric net have a lot of missions today in Sweden to make it easier to install recharging everywhere in Sweden. So we have a lot of missions and projects running to make this faster and smoother for all parties.
And there is also a quest to shorten the lead times, shorten the handling times of building out, of expanding or increasing the capacity of the Swedish basic or grid.
That's correct. I also would like to add that a lot of these electric supplies at the building sector will most likely be non-public charging. So a good scheme for non-public charging is very important to us too, I think.
All right, thank you, Anders. Should we move on to Frida? And Frida, what about FFI and Vinnova? Do you have any comments on how do you look at the barriers to scaling this up? You talked about the Accelerate program and what you're trying to do there.
Yes, of course, I agree with the previous speakers, but we are trying to focus on a system perspective and also implementation to get this running quicker, but also to get all the whole system and the relevant actors in the projects.
Okay, and you will work with the FFI project and new applications for new projects in the coming years here. Do you anticipate a lot of activity?
I hope so.
Okay.
Of course. We see a lot of similar projects right now, and we hope it's the start of getting this running quicker. But yeah, I'm hopeful.
Okay. And maybe there's also room for more pan-European projects. We will have some questions in the chat that we will get to. But first, thanks, Frida. Thomas, as a representative for the Swedish Transport Administration, I know that you are working a little bit with not only electric road systems, but also how the Swedish Transport Administration would work with charging infrastructure at truck stops and stops along the highway. Do you have any insight in that?
Maybe not so much more what you already said, but of course this will have quite big influence on all these truck stops and parking areas, but we have the rest areas because we need to have them much bigger, and you need a lot of permits, what you should say, to build them bigger. So that is in our plan for the future. So all new roads, I believe, they will from the beginning have larger rest areas along the roads. And of course, what I talked about, if we will have electric road systems, that will be a very big influence on what we are doing. Didn't you hear me from the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. No problem.
Okay, good, because it was strange in my ears. But I think, otherwise it will not have so big influence on us, because it's not we who are responsible for rest areas for more around truck stops and other things. But of course we are following what is happening.
Okay, and Anders and Anna, do you share that the Swedish Transport Administration and there has not so much to do in this area? Anders, maybe it's a question to you.
Yeah, I mean, as the road managing authority, I think of course we need to see how the public resting places. There are a number of transport administration managed resting places along our roads. And then all the big the role as a public procurer of large infrastructure projects. Here we can see the transport administration leading the way by questioning, or by having in their contracts starting with a part of that to be zero emission, etc., both on the yellow machines, excavators, etc., but on the truck transport to and from these sites. So I think the big authority could play a role here, definitely. So I wouldn't like to see the transport administration to back away from that part, at least.
But
Anna?
sorry, because Gunnar, can I just answer that? Because I didn't think about that. Because of course we will do that, and I think we are already doing that in some procurements, and we also have research projects. It's planned to have one project where everything should be electrified. Everything you are doing in that whole construction project will be done with electrified vehicles if it goes through procurement. But our idea is to test that, to have everything through electrified.
Okay, thanks so much. Anna, you had a comment as well.
Yeah, it was on the same in the same direction in the transport administration as a transport procurer in the procurement that we need to in all procurements we need to put up the right incentives or requirements for electrification of transport. And I think this is also an interesting point because there are many parts in this puzzle that are needed to accelerate electrification. As I really support Anders' comments before on the long-term plans or the long-term contracts that we have also seen that are really, really important for the haulage companies to buy electric trucks, etc., so that they can get their TCO calculations right, and that they can. We need to share the risk because it is a new way of operating transport, so there will be risks. We don't know how to do it, so we need to share that risk. And there are many roles in this game, and I think that learning by doing is a very good way forward here. We need to go out and test together. We don't have all the answers in the beginning, but we need to dare to test and expand the borders of what we believe electrified heavy transport can do all the time.
Thanks, Anna. We have some minutes left and we need to check the chat and maybe I could get some help from you all. We have a question here. How important, from Sita Holslag, how important is global alignment on ambition that zero emission trucks is the future? And what do you think of the global initiative to align countries on an ambition to go to 100% new sales to be zero emission by 2040, the latest? And that is a question to, well, should we start with, who would like to take that question? How important is global alignment on ambition to zero emission trucks is the future?
I can read my answer, I hope. I mean, it's a valid question, and it's delicate in a sense. I think it's more important to focus on, for instance, the Paris Agreement. We haven't reached any global alignment on the Paris Agreement, and to single out trucks, I think in this case is of symbolic value, particularly in a global perspective. If we go to the developing part of the world, so I don't see. I think we should focus on the Paris Agreement, which will be the decisive part for the climate and for our children, etc. And then CO2 free. I mean, 100% SEV. For us, it's 100% CO2 free. That's what is important for the climate, and that may include a small niche of ICE trucks fueled by renewables, of course. To rule them out by setting mandates today for 2040 is also more of symbolic value than it is a sort of wise societal perspective. Because we need to move carefully. We see what happens with stability and acceptance in France 2 years back. We need to move carefully so we keep society together and do not punish and let parts of society bear a too high cost. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
I mean, if we go up in inland northern Sweden and would mandate zero emission trucks there on other remote parts of Europe or the world, it's easy to see that it's not an easy case to solve with zero emission vehicles, not even hopefully by 2040, but we don't know that yet. So I think we should be a little careful by raising the bar instead of practicing on. I mean, we raised the bar to 250 now in high jump, and we're still jumping at 150. So let's practice to take, to get up to 2 meters before we raise the bar any further. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. Let's see.
But the bar, Sita, the bar is already high. The bar is extremely high. If we are going to reach the Paris Agreement, the bar is set extremely high for all sectors. And I see no need why we should jack it even further on the truck, singling out trucks, other than that it's politically viable because it's visible, and that's what makes it sort of a prime target.
Okay, thank you, Anders. We have several questions in the chat. I have one question here that is quite short, but it's: are there any visions? It's Manam. Manam asks, are there any visions on extending this internationally? And extending this, is that the real project maybe, or the e-charge project, or so? Is there an interest? Have you met an interest, Andreas, in extending the real projects internationally outside Sweden?
We have some contacts being established with colleagues in US. I look at my colleague here, Lars-Göran, but if you would like to mention something.
Yeah, this is Lars Rosengren, also involved here in Lindholmen Science Park, and we have taken some initiatives to try to have a collaboration between real and similar organization in California, maybe one or two, but there are some people trying to investigate that now, because they run on we run on several different logistic cases here, but in US the situation is a little bit different, so it could be very useful to exchange information. What are their experiences? What are ours, etc. But We haven't finished it yet.
But we can also say that we are open to collaborate. So if you would like to reach out, if you have any initiatives and would like to collaborate with us, we are willing to do that. So please reach out to us, either Gunnar or me.
And when it comes to e-charge, I know there are European projects working on the same topic, HOLA and it's one project, and this new ZEFES project, CEFES. So there are visions on international or at least pan-European corporations.
We're running out of time.
We are running out of time, and we would like to thank you everyone for attending this workshop, and thank you Márcia and Fernando and all you other guys at ALICE and EMEurope. If you have any questions, you will be able to reach us, not only me and Andreas, but also Frida and Anders and Thomas at the authorities in Sweden. And I'm sure that Anders Bjerke and Anna Pernestål could be reached and contacted as well. So with that, thank you very much everyone for attending, and wish you a good lunch and a good afternoon. Okay, should we say that?